Good evening, Vice Chair Dean, members of the Commission, and members of the public. Just to give you a quick overview of the staff presentation this evening, the purpose of tonight is to introduce the project, provide information on the process, and take public comment. I will start by giving an overview of the project. Then Tim Morgan, who is sitting to my right of ESA, will give a presentation on the environmental document. ESA is a consultant supporting the city staff on the environmental portion of the project. Next will be to open the hearing for public comment. As noted in the staff report, staff is recommending that we continue the item after this evening to an August meeting to allow staff enough time to respond to the large volume of comments that we received. This evening will be an opportunity for the public to primarily comment on the project. So getting down to the project. The parcel is located in the General Industrial District, which requires a use permit for oil and gas refining. The Valero refinery was constructed prior to adoption of that requirement, and therefore the existing refinery is considered to be a legal non-conforming use. The non-conforming use regulations of the Benicia Municipal Code require that a use permit for alteration expansion as defined of a non-conforming use. The crude by rail project constitutes an alteration. Keep it there. The refinery is located within the Benicia Industrial Park. The main entrance is off of East 2nd Street. There's a secondary entrance also accessible by train on the east side of the refinery off of Park Road. Mari, can you go back one? Thank you. The refinery was constructed originally by Humble Oil in 1969 and has undergone a number of changes over the years. Many of the changes were in response to new regulations limiting emissions from refinery process units and requiring reformation of gasoline to produce cleaner burning fuels. In 2000, Exxon sold the refinery to Valero. In 2003, Valero received a use permit approval for the Valero Improvement Project, more commonly known as the VIP, to modify existing refinery equipment and install new equipment to allow the refinery to process lower grade of raw materials, crude oil and gas oil, and to increase the overall production of about 10%. The refinery is limited by its permits from the Bay Area Quality Management District to 180 barrels per day on a maximum daily basis and 165,000 barrels per day on an annual average. This limit would not change. Next slide, please. The project description. So it encompasses about 10 bullet points that I'm going to hit. The first is the change in the shipment method of up to 70,000 barrels per day of crude oil to be delivered by rail cars rather than by marine vessel. The new rail car delivery will be for a maximum of 100 cars per day, split into 2 trains of 50 cars each. Includes an installation of a new 1,500-foot-long unloading rack capable of offloading two rows of 25 crude oil rail cars. Construction of 2 parallel rail spurs to access the unloading rack. Installation of approximately 4,000 linear feet of crude oil above ground pipeline. The new pipeline will link the unloading rack to the storage tank. A change in service for tank 1776. This tank is currently permitted to store Jet A mogas and less volatile materials such as diesel. The proposal includes a change in service to allow the storage of crude oil. There are no physical modifications that would impact the emissions. However, the tank would be outfitted with additional nozzles for connections. Includes a replacement and relocation of approximately 1,800 feet of tank farm dikes with a new 8-foot-tall concrete berm. Relocation of existing fire water pipeline, compressor station, and associated underground infrastructure. Relocation or removal of existing groundwater wells along Avenue A, and I'll go through that later, but Avenue A is essentially where all of the new track will be. Construction of a new 20-foot wide service road along the western side of the new unloading rail spurs, and installation of 3 new pumps located on the western side of the new service road. These pumps will support delivering the crude from the unloading rack to tank 1776. Next slide. So what I have on this slide is a simple overview of the infrastructure changes. I apologize with the glare that it's, oh good, the TVs are better to be seen, so I apologize to the commission. So what this is laying out is essentially two main areas of track changes. The area on the lower left is for the track improvements for the train switching. The area on the lower right is the new track for the unloading rack. It also highlights where tank 1776 is. Hopefully you can see that. And then it gives a very rough outline of the new pipeline that I was referring to that goes from the loading rack essentially around the lower tank farm over to tank 1776. Next slide. So the first part I'm going to highlight is the proposed track for the improvements for the switching activity. Next slide. This one provides a little bit more detail as exactly to what it is. It's difficult to see, but the plan is also included in the project plans, which is in your packet. There are 3 existing tracks now on site in this area, and therefore butane and propane unloading. New track is being added so that the 50-car trains can be split into 2 trains of 25 cars. All of the switching and the cutting, and essentially all the switching and the cutting the train in half, it will come into the refinery as 50 cars and then split in this area so that it can then move into the unloading racks. All of this will happen here as opposed to outside the refinery. Next slide. So the track will be extended into this lower area, which is, there's no track there now. It will be new track for the unloading rack. Next slide. Again, the same type of plan that you can see in your packet, but the new loading rack will be located on the northeastern portion of the property between under the lower farm tank and just on the other side of Sulphur Springs Creek. The unloading rack will consist of 25 60-foot long segments measuring a total of 1,500 linear feet. And as I mentioned, the rack is to accommodate two lines of 25 rail cars at a time. Next slide. The unloading rack platform would be 15 feet above the ground in height. The walkway, which is crossed over the track, it will be a minimum of 23 feet, which is required by Union Pacific Railroad for facilities that go over railway track. The new rail car unloading area will include liquid spill containments. Part of the existing containment berm for the existing tank field adjacent to the unloading rack would be replaced with a new concrete berm. So it's a little bit difficult to see, and I apologize, but if you look on the left-hand side of the screen, the berm is, you can see where the car is. It's to the left of the car. That's the berm I'm referring to. Next slide. So this slide is essentially a section of the lighting plan to give the commission an idea of the type of lighting that's going to have to be associated with the new unloading rack. The new project would add new safety lighting on and around the proposed car unloading racks. Lighting standards provided in the municipal code require that site lighting shall be designed and installed to confine direct light rays to the site and provide a minimum illumination at ground level of 0.5 foot candles. Each segment of the track would include an aluminum pole with 4 LED lights mounted at 12 feet above the unloading rack platform walkway and 2 LED pendant fixtures mounted underneath the platform, 8 feet above grade. In addition, 2 pole-mounted LED lights would be located 18 inches above grade. Walkways extending over the rail spurs, which would be those walkways that I indicated that had to be 23 feet, would include 6 stanchion-mounted LED fixtures along the walkway and stairs, and 4 at the stairway landings at each of the unloading rack. 11 stanchion-mounted LED fixtures would be mounted 8 feet above 11 monitoring stations that would be done the initial review and determined that the project was consistent with the development standards providing in the zoning ordinance, including the height, the parking, and the setbacks. There were preliminary conditions of approval drafted. Those were included in the draft resolution in the staff report. The purpose of that was to provide you with an early review of the conditions of approval. The conditions of approval generally require the project compliance with the drafted mitigation measures, as well as the city's emergency response needs. Use permit findings. As with any use permit, the Planning Commission must make the use permit findings for approval as outlined in the Benicia Municipal Code. Those findings are outlined in the staff report as well as in the draft resolution, and I won't go into all the details, maybe next meeting. So for the environmental review, for this project, we prepared an initial study, a mitigated negative declaration. This circulated for public review during the period of May 30th through July 1st. We received 29 comments during this period. An additional 3 comments were submitted after the close of public review period, which were included in the PC packet. Since the publication of the packet, we received an additional 14 comments. Those were the 14 comments that Chair Sherry opened the meeting with and let you all know that they're on that back table there.